Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the members of the public. We welcome you to our public hearing and closed session meeting of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. Today is Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. Supervisor Mitchell has notified us that she will be joining us remotely for today's meeting due to illness. At this time, it would be appropriate for Supervisor Mitchell to disclose if any persons over the age of 18 are in the room and their relationship, pursuant to Government Code 54953.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and there are no individuals over the age of 18 in the room.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Mitchell, and we hope you'll be feeling better soon. We
Appreciate that.
take note that a full complement of the board is present. The Chief Executive Officer, the County Council, the Executive Officer, and the Sergeant at Arms are all here to assist. And we will begin today's board meeting with the county's land acknowledgement. You guys are bad over there.
The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, the Tataviam, Serrano, Quiche, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians, Quiche Nation, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, the San Fernando Band of Mission Indians.
Okay, Executive Officer, please call the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will begin on page 2, public hearings, items 1 through 3. On item 1, Supervisor Barger recuses herself pursuant to Government Code Section 84308 because she received a contribution of more than $250 within the past 12 months from Lance William, who is a party participant or agent of a party or participant. These items will be held for hearing. On item CS1, this is an addition as indicated on the supplemental agenda. That completes the reading of the agenda, Madam Chair.
Okay, before we begin with our public hearing items, Executive Officer, please read the call-in information that was also provided on the agenda and explain the speaking rules.
For members of the public wishing to participate remotely, as indicated on the agenda, please call 877-692-8955 and use participant code number 4433663. Members of the public participating remotely and in the boardroom, you will have the opportunity to address the board throughout the meeting. You will receive 1 minute to address the board on each of the public hearing items, and you will receive 1 minute to comment on the closed session item and 1 additional minute for general public comment for a total of 2 minutes. For members of the public joining us remotely, when the board moves to the item you wish to address, promptly press 1, then 0 to be entered into the speaking queue. Please remember to turn down the volume on your device as soon as the moderator calls on you, or there will be an echo. You will need to press 1, then 0 for each item on which you would like to speak. To ensure we hear from both in-person and telephonic speakers, we will alternate between the 2 speaking queues. Members of the public who are in attendance, when you hear or see your name displayed on the screen, please come down to the front of the room and staff will assist you. Please do not approach the podium until directed to do so. We will begin by calling in-person speakers, and while they are coming forward, we will take telephonic speakers.
Okay, let's go back, and Executive Officer, please play the code of conduct.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I please have your attention? The meeting of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors is about to commence. A code of conduct will now be read, and we request that you comply with it to ensure the efficient administration of the meeting. Members of the public, it is your right to participate in today's board hearing, and the board encourages such participation. However, the right of the public to address the board must be balanced with the need to ensure that public comment does not interfere with the orderly course of the board's business. All are reminded to abide by the following rules. Speakers must cease speaking immediately when their time has ended. Public comment on agenda items must relate to the subject matter of that item. General public comment is limited to subjects within the jurisdiction of the board. Public comment does not include the right to engage in a dialogue with board members or staff. Please remain respectful of the forum and refrain from uttering, writing, or displaying profane, personal, threatening, derogatory, demeaning, or other abusive statements toward the board, any member thereof, staff, or any other person. Members of the audience should be respectful of the views expressed by speakers, staff, and board members, and may not clap, cheer, whistle, or otherwise disrupt the orderly conduct of the meeting. Any person engaging in conduct that disrupts the meeting is subject to being removed from the board meeting. And finally, if you witness conduct or behavior by other members of the public that disrupts your ability to remain engaged or participate in this meeting, please notify the Sergeant at Arms or other county staff. Thank you for your cooperation.
Executive Officer, please swear in the members of the public who are requesting to address the board on these public hearing items.
Please stand and raise your right hand. In the testimony you may give before this board, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, we're going to begin with item 1. And for members of the public on the telephone, please press 1 then 0 now to comment on this item. Executive Officer, please read in the short title.
Item 1 is a hearing on the annexation of tentative subdivision project known as Project L043-2022 within the unincorporated area of Canyon Country to the County Lighting Maintenance District 1687 and County Lighting District Landscaping and Lighting Act-1 unincorporated zone. A departmental statement was submitted and correspondence was received.
Okay, I see Mark Pastrella is here, our Director of Public Works, will be available for any questions. Are there any supervisors that would like to make comments? Okay, seeing none, Executive Officer, please call the members of the public who've signed up to speak on item 1.
Madam Chair, there are no in-person speakers to address this item. As a final reminder for participants on the telephone, if you would like to address this item, if you have not already done so, please press 1 then 0 now to be placed in the speaking queue. Moderator, may we have the first speaker, please?
Our first participant is Dr. Genevieve Claverall. You may begin.
Yes, good morning, Board of Supervisors. But I thought you were going to make a presentation about that item before the public is able to speak to it. And that's the way it usually happens. So I have very little to say because I don't know what you have decided to do and what, if it's any change from any of the supervisors. So that's what I have to say now. I hope for the next 2 items you don't do the same area. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, and just to be clear, yeah, we're not having a presentation on each item. It's a public hearing, and so we're not having presentations. But thank you for calling in, Genevieve. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is April Dolleman. You may begin.
Hi, yes. Please keep masks in healthcare settings for medical professionals and patients. I was infected with COVID at my cardiologist's office on October 2020.
Excuse me,
At only 31
excuse me. This is not general public comment. This
Yes.
is on a specific hearing on the annexation and levying of assessments for county lighting districts in Canyon Count Country.
I think they might have transferred me to the wrong place. It was supposed to be for masks in healthcare.
Right. We're not discussing that today. Stay on the line if you want to address this during public comment. You can talk about that. So stay on the line. Okay. Next speaker for item 1.
There are no other speakers, Madam.
Okay, then it would be appropriate to close the public hearing, direct the tabulation of the ballots, and then table the item until later in the meeting for tabulation results and action by this board. And that will be the order. Let's move to item 2. For members of the public on the telephone, please press 1 then 0 now to comment on this item, item 2. Executive Officer, please read in the short title.
Item 2 is a hearing on the annexation of 5 parcels into the Consolidated Sewer Maintenance District within the unincorporated areas of the Val Verde and the cities of Azusa and Santa Clarita, levying of sewer services charges in the annexed parcels for fiscal year 2024-2025. A departmental statement was provided and correspondence was received.
Okay, are there any supervisors? We still have Mark Pastrella here available for questions. Are there any supervisors that would like to make remarks on this item?
Madam
Yes.
Chair, just a question for the director to Mark Pastrella. Just to ask him about the city of Azusa, how many parcels are we talking about and what type of outreach is done ahead of time, if any?
Supervisor, I'm looking up that information. I'll get it right back to you. The actual number of parcels within Azusa is what you're asking. There's 890 individual properties that this action affects. They're organized into 5 parcels within the district. That's not property parcels, that's just parcels within the district. And all my staff figure out exactly how many in Azusa. We'll get right back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I follow
Yes,
up on that?
please.
So I'm being told that there are 890 parcels being annexed, so you're going to get the breakdown.
Yeah.
How many are currently on septic systems?
There are 35 parcels. Let me get the exact here. I have that number in front of me.
I was told 27.
Yeah, there's the reason there's a little pause there is because we have 35 parcels that are not currently served. 27 of them, as you're right, Supervisor, are on septic currently. The other are actually vacant properties.
And then just for the record, can you explain why homeowners on septic systems have to pay the annual fee?
Right. So the homeowners on septic systems are essentially buying insurance for their properties. It's $50 a year for those property owners. And what happens is what the benefit they get from that is that if they're ever going to upgrade the home where they're going to be most likely required to connect to sewer, the sewer will be available to them. And then if they do major modifications of the house in terms of the plumbing, any plumbing modifications, those parcels will be required to move to sewer. By paying this annual fee, you're essentially paying an insurance that you have the available to connect that house to a maintained sewer line.
Thank you. Did you, both of you, get your questions answered? Or you're going to follow up with Supervisor Solis? It looks like maybe they're talking about it now.
Supervisor Solis, it's 595 properties in Azusa.
How many of those are on septic, do you know?
Do we have that?
It's a majority.
We don't have that, Supervisor. We'll have to break it down for you.
But what kind of outreach are you doing to those that may have septic?
So, yeah, it's a question I expected you to ask. Yeah, so what's happened, one good question is how has this come about that we're annexing new parcels in? And so what we're doing is responding to the property owner's request to connect to sewer, to be in sewer, and to be serviced that way. And then some of these are actually new developments that came along and are going to be required to be on sewer, so they come and do it. And then there actually are some that property owners that have been getting some service but not actually been actually paying the fee and haven't been, and therefore being now formally annexed into the system. So it's a little bit of a cleanup, but most of what the action is from is having the property owners request to be put into the consolidated sewer maintenance district. Then in June, we came to the board and had an action, if you remember, asking for the board to direct us to go and actually tabulate this vote and ask the property owners if they want to be included. And under Prop 218, what that requires is first a mail out to every property owner that this is coming. And then we've had a couple of virtual meetings with the property, virtual meetings set up for people to log in and actually hear about the fee. And so trying to encourage them to be educated about it. And so that's the process right now that we use in the county is mail out, couple mailings in compliance with 218, virtual meetings to let them know about it, and then invite them to provide what today is a protest vote. So essentially, property owners that are opposed we would tabulate their votes today in compliance with 218. It's difficult because the parcels are distributed throughout the area, so you don't have sort of a consolidated community you're talking to. It's quite linear. You see that it's 3 different areas. The district itself is like 4,000 miles of sewer system, and it's maintained in conformance with state law and also at the request of cities as well. The cities will come in and ask us to actually expand the sewer system within their cities, so they get to have the opportunity to have us become their sewer maintenance operator in those cities as well. So we have city input. Part of the outreach also is each city manager in the specific areas, the unincorporated area, are talked to about this fee being increased or this new fee being imposed upon the property owners.
And I do know there are recent developments, new developments that have come up and that are in the queue, so
yes,
it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. I mean, it just seems like maybe going forward, we would ask your department maybe to include the supervisor in terms of outreach and maybe get we should all get better briefed on
sure.
Particularly this is a different kind of thing, and annexation and bringing them into the sewer system. So that would be my suggestion.
We will do that. I think
Seems
we
like
also
they've
can,
got some questions that maybe could have been answered
sure.
Before.
I think we can do also, I mean, it might be more board actions, but taking it by community rather than having this huge, all over the place. We could do that as well. And as supervisor, and this is in the past, we had these districts come in, and, it's so confusing on Prop 218 how it works. And, I've demanded that our staff do an increased level of outreach as we do new fees and new annexations. And I feel that we've done that in this case.
Yeah.
But I'd like to be, as you said, it would be important for us to make sure you're aware of that before we go out.
Right.
And then have your staff involved.
It does sound like overall this it really came from the residents that they sort of, the majority of them, would you say, asked for this?
They did ask for it.
And you're just bringing in a few to complete the entire area.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Executive Officer, please call the members of the public that have signed up to speak on this item, item 2.
Will Donald Harlan please come forward and staff will assist you? As a final reminder for participants on the telephone, if you would like to address this item, and if you have not already done so, please press 1, then 0 now to be placed in the speaking queue. Moderator, may we have the first remote speaker, please?
Our first participant is Genevieve Claverell. You may begin. Dr. Claverell, your line is open. You may begin. Go ahead, please.
Genevieve, are you there? Okay. Yes, why don't we go in person and then we'll see if we can find Genevieve.
Hi.
Good morning.
I'm Donald Harlan. This is about the annexation for levying of sewer charges. Valverde, Azusa, Santa Clarita. Those are my properties. Those are my cities. I'm the founder of those cities. They belong to me. I own most of the property in those towns, including your previous agenda item, Canyon Country. I have for a long time, all the way to the mountains connecting in between. There's no need to annex property in my city for my sewers. You guys, you have a problem, people trying to sell themselves things. Somebody wants to pay themselves for the sewer system over there. You don't have any idea the sewer system, the amount of money going in there. There's a water disposal system over there where they're feeding water into a crevice in the earth, all the wastewater. And there's a bunch of money going in there. And there's a tax by these people here to try and get those properties and try and levy that. And they need to be stopped by you guys
Okay,
right
thank you. Is there another, is there any more in person? No? Did we find Genevieve?
She's still on the line. And Genevieve, can you unmute yourself, please?
I'm sorry. This is Genevieve. I'm passing. Thank you.
You okay? Did you hear that she wanted to keep speaking or? Okay. All right, Genevieve, we're going to move on. It would be appropriate to close the public hearing and vote on this item. Item 2, colleagues, is now before us. Moved by Supervisor Solis, seconded by Supervisor Barger to approve the item. Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Item 2 is before you. Supervisor Solis.
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Mitchell. Supervisor Mitchell?
Mitchell, just FYI, the system has dropped me 3 times now. So if IRM could take a look at it. Sorry, Madam Chair. Mitchell, I.
Thank you. Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Supervisor Horvath?
Aye.
Supervisor Horvath, aye. Supervisor Barger?
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Supervisor Hahn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Yeah, don't be dropping Supervisor Mitchell anymore. Who's ever doing that? That ain't right. Okay, let's move on to item 3. For members of the public on the telephone, please press 1, then 0 now to comment on this item. Executive Officer, please read in the short title.
Item 3 is a hearing on the fiscal year 2022-2023 hazardous vegetation weed abatement charges to confirm the Agriculture Commissioner weights and measures and the Consolidated Fire Protection District vegetation abatement costs to be assessed to owners of designated parcels of land or improved parcels. No departmental statement was provided and correspondence was received.
Okay, we have... Okay, we have Kurt Florin, our Agriculture Commissioner of Weights and Measures here. We have Adrian Zavala, Deputy Director, Department of Agriculture Commissioner, Weights and Measures. We have our Fire Chief, Anthony Maroney here. And we have Ron Durbin, the Forestry Chief of the Fire Department. They're all here to ask, are available for questions. So I had Teresa Barrera, but, oh, there you are, okay. Are there any supervisors that would like to make remarks?
Madam Chair, could we just hear a presentation very quickly from, I think that could be helpful for some of us.
Who would like to make this presentation?
Oh, I'll never miss an opportunity.
Right, okay, go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, basically, we're here today to approve the vegetation abatement costs for both agriculture weights and measures and the county fire district. This is basically the defensible space inspection fee and the fee for vegetation removal and abatement. So the fire district is going to collect approximately $2.5 million. The board, your honorable board, approved the defensible space inspection fee back in December 7th of 2021. It is $50. We're taking the first revenue from that, approximately $2.5 million, because we collect 1 year in the rears And then for agriculture weights and measures, I'll let Director Florin present.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Supervisors. So ACWM, Ag Commissioner Weights and Measures, we monitor over 29,000 parcels. These are unimproved parcels, those without structures upon them. And every year they're given notice, the parcel owners, of the requirements to maintain clearance. And typically every year, anywhere from about 10 to 15% fail to do that clearance. So in this year, out of 29,567 parcels that were notified, 3,746 failed to do that work. So we're here today requesting total expenditures from our department for recovery of $3,640,320, of which $2.7 million is actual clearing costs. The other $937,000 is from our $48.09 admin and inspection fee. So, thank you.
And so when you say you collect in arrears, it means that the clearing has already happened. It took place last year or earlier this year. When did the clearing take place?
Our clearing, this is clearing that would have been completed by June 30th,
Okay.
By the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other supervisors? Executive Officer, please call the members of the public who signed up to speak on this item, item 3.
Will Donald Harden please come forward and staff will assist you? As a final reminder for participants on the telephone, if you would like to address this item, if you have not already done so, please press 1, then 0 now to be placed in the speaking queue. Moderator, may we have the first speaker, please?
Our first participant is Lynn Plambeck. You may begin.
Oh, hi, I live out in a very high fire hazard area, and in the past, inspections have always been done without a charge, and now, of course, you realize you're adding $50 whether the inspection is a requirement or not, whether clearing is required or not. And there's been in our area, quite a lot of concern over this because a lot of new parcels were added, and many of the community feel that, they're going to go up $100 next year and to $150 the third year. And the new parcels were not in high fire hazard areas where they were when the houses were bought. And I know that Supervisor Barger's office heard a lot of complaints about this fee. But I also want to say that there's also concern about the notice that went out because it says to cut trees down, and there's misunderstanding about what has to be cut. And we can't have people cutting all their trees down when we have to save them for when we need the.
Thank you for those comments.
But I just want to say one more thing.
Oh, well, your time has expired.
But I submitted a public comment, and they're never posted.
What's not posted? Did you want to just, we're not really supposed to engage with the public, but maybe just clarify, are we asking people to cut trees down?
Yeah, I'm going to ask that as a question.
Okay.
So I'd like to understand, first of all, or clarify, is the high fire zone as a result of the state changing the map?
Yes, Supervisor, that's correct.
Okay, so the state has changed what they classify as high fire, and then to the question on cutting down trees.
Yeah, trees are to be trimmed from 10 feet from the structure. We did have AB 3074. We did send out some information about that new legislation that might require a 5-foot ember zone. So if a tree was to be within 5 feet of a structure, it would have to be removed, but we're not enforcing that. That was given to all the homeowners just as a heads up about what might be coming down from the state with AB 3074.
Is that the Freeman bill? Because I know there's a bill that was passed by some member Friedman that addresses the wood around a home.
You're correct. It's the Friedman bill.
Friedman.
Yeah.
What did I say?
I thought it was Chief Freeman.
Oh, no. Okay, Madam Chair, I would ask on that Friedman, because I've had people ask about that bill. I think we should do outreach because it does impact structures in high fire. And it is going to change, for example, if they're going to put in decking, they have to use certain material. Otherwise, they're not in compliance, is my understanding. So I think it might be helpful, Chief, if we start doing some outreach on that in the areas that are now considered high fire, which I think predominantly really impacts Supervisor Solis and I, and actually Supervisor Horvath.
That's correct. This new Friedman bill, the AB 3074, is going to be very restrictive.
Right.
And it's going to require people that have had vegetation within 5 feet of their structure to have to remove it for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of public pushback.
I think we need to really be in front of that because your inspectors are going to get a lot of the angst from the people that they're telling they have to comply.
Okay, so yeah, the fire district will do outreach regarding AB 3074, but it's not enforceable at this time.
I understand, but at some point it is going to be. So this, the reason why it's not enforceable is because we're giving time to kind of get people acclimated. So I think it's important for us to do that outreach sooner rather than later.
Okay, the district will do that.
Forgive me, Madam Chair, but
No need to forgive you, Supervisor Solis.
Recently I got noticed that I was in a fire district for whatever reason. So, of course, there's issues with insurance. And so I don't live up in the hills, but nonetheless, I'm wondering, does this also then apply for homeowners? Because there are some, I want to say, rural type areas in the area that I reside in. And I'm just wondering, how would that impact other homeowners there in terms of what our responsibilities might be? Because there could be unincorporated areas, right?
That's correct.
Overlap in, I know they do in our area for the 5th and the 1st over by some of the, I want to, if you could comment on that.
Yeah, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Durbin, but you've correctly identified that homeowners that weren't previously in the fire hazard severity zone now find themselves in that zone because of the updates to the state map, but I'll let Chief Durbin explain further.
Correct, thank you. So the fire hazard severity zones, the state will finalize those maps this year. And those are the zones that will be included for next year. So what we've done so far is just do the inspections with the old maps. We haven't updated any of that just yet. As soon as the state finalizes the map, that will be included again for next year's inspections. Regarding insurance, the fire department does not have any influence on that. Right. We try to let everybody know exactly what's happening and point them in the directions for insurance.
Yeah, it will eventually, though.
Thank you. Well, and I mean, every night on the news is the horrible tragedy that continues to unfold in Maui. So back to, what we're doing here, right? This is about hazardous vegetation and weed abatement, which the fire department would probably point to as one of the #1 mitigation measures to prevent the spreading of, out of control fires as it goes through residential areas. So we know this is important, but to get back to the public who want to weigh in on this item, on these charges, are we still on the phone? So next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Eric Previn. You may begin.
Thank you. This is an important issue, and of course, this is of great concern. I mean, if people's insurance rates are going to skyrocket, first of all, these wildfires are dangerous and serious, as is the fire department's structural problem. However, attacking residents, but by creating these, most of these fires, like for example in Maui, they didn't do anything really wrong. The systems failed, but there was just a mighty wind blowing a giant blowtorch through their hood. I mean, we'll look back on it, but taking down the trees is an outrage beyond belief. We can't be, cutting down all the trees. Of course, things have to be trimmed back, but these things are usually free unless you've had a violation. So I think that going for 50, then 100, then 150 is going to get tremendous pushback. The county's budget has soared by $20 billion since I've been watching. So we have to find the money to help the fire department. I don't get it. This is, again, an example of kind of confused leadership. This is not, the heart goes out. They're fighting fires.
Your
but
time,
why
your time
are
has
the people
expired.
paying for it?
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Your time has expired.
Yes.
Are we another one on the phone, or? Yes, we have next speaker, please, on the phone.
Our next participant is Paul Hennessy. You may begin.
I just want to echo the previous speaker's comment. The burden shouldn't be on, the taxpayer for this. And then yet, additional cutting down trees it's the opposite direction of what we want to do. My neighborhood specifically overgrown with weeds, and we need more trees, less weeds, and less on like the residents who can't afford to pay for that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just get a clarification? Because
Yes.
I want to make sure that I'm clear. If a tree is within how many feet under the Friedman bill?
5 feet.
If a tree is within 5 feet right now, you're not going to enforce, they have to trim it. But when we start to enforce, they will have to cut it down, correct?
That would be correct.
Okay,
Oh,
see,
yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
important for us to understand. And that's why it's supposed to get outreach. This is not the county imposing, this is a state bill that passed
That is
that
correct.
mandates it. And then we are the enforcer, correct?
Yes, and it's not only trees, it's all flammable
No, I understand, but
vegetation,
there's-
wooden fences, decks.
Everything.
It's very, very restrictive, and it's gonna be difficult to enforce.
Okay, I just want to make sure we say for the record, because I don't think anyone on this dais disagrees with the concern about cutting down trees, but having them trimmed, because just to Chair Hahn's point, what we saw over in Maui is a wake-up call. But at the same time, there are ways to mitigate that by cleaning out the grass and the dead vegetation. But I just want to, that's why I think we need to do outreach, because there's confusion.
Yeah, and I think we should explore trying to find a better balance,
Mm-hmm.
because having a 5-foot ember zone that has nothing flammable is, I think, nearly impossible.
Right. Thank you, Chief. Do we have any other speakers on the phone?
Madam Chair, there are no additional remote speakers in queue to address the board.
Okay, let's go in person. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I'm speaking about the hazardous vegetation weed abatement charges. I'm not about, you guys shouldn't be allowed to be creating tax levies for things and trying to spend money, trying to squeeze people for money, even though everybody's there unlawfully. Those are unlawfully developed parcels mostly. And you're really only talking about $3 or $4 million. I really think that you should go ahead and send some of the city workers to the unincorporated areas to work in weed abatement. That I would go ahead and authorize for weed abatement in the county for them to do a bunch. Please remember that when you guys run tractors or do weed abatement, you have to have water available to put out any fires and have the fire department ready when you guys do that. But I would authorize any weed abatement expenditures necessary. And if it be goats or a bunch of city employees you guys have because of COVID money or whatever, relief money or whatever, that's all. Send those guys to hoe weeds.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
There are no more speakers, Madam Chair.
Okay. Then it would be appropriate to close the public hearing and vote on this item. Item 3 is now before us, moved by Supervisor Barger, seconded by Supervisor Horvath to approve the item. Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Item 3 is before you. Supervisor Solis?
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Mitchell?
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Supervisor Horvath?
Aye.
Supervisor Horvath, aye. Supervisor Barger?
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Supervisor Hahn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, colleagues, we're now going to return to item 1. Executive Officer, please report on the ballot tabulation results.
Madam Chair and members of the board, after tabulating the ballots, a determination has been made that no majority protest exists against the proposed annexation and levy of annual assessments of tentative subdivision territory known as Project L043-2022 within the unincorporated area of Canyon Country to County Lighting Maintenance District 1687, and County Lighting District Landscaping and Lighting Act 1, unincorporated zone. As a result, it would be appropriate for the board to adopt the resolution ordering the annexation and levying of assessments and the joint resolutions approving and accepting the negotiated exchange of property tax revenues resulting from the annexation of subdivision territories to County Lighting Maintenance District 1687 for fiscal year 2024-25.
Okay, item 1 is now before us with Supervisor Barger recusing herself from the vote pursuant to Government Code Section 84308. So it'll be moved by Supervisor Horvath, seconded by Supervisor Solis to approve the item. Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Supervisor Solis?
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Mitchell?
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Supervisor Horvath?
Aye.
Supervisor Horvath, aye. Supervisor Barger recuses herself from the vote pursuant to Government Code Section 84308. Supervisor Hahn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Motion carries 4-0 with one recusal.
Okay, at this time, it would be appropriate to hear from supervisors on items not posted on the agenda to be presented or referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. It's my understanding that Supervisor Barger has a special.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last week, Chair Hahn and Supervisor Horvath introduced a motion to consider increasing the hourly wage for employees at hotels and theme parks in the county. I recognize that this motion was a read-in for vote in September to enable time for stakeholders, workers, businesses, and anyone else impacted to have an opportunity to weigh in, and we as a board have the ability to consider that feedback. To that end, I have a motion that I would like to read in today that reads as follows. I therefore move that the Board of Supervisors direct the Chief Executive Office to report back to the board in writing before September 12th on the results of the following. Input from all relevant stakeholders, including hotels, theme parks, retail, operations, theaters, business associations, and labor, in addition to feedback from economic organizations such as Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation and the Santa Clarita Economic Development Corporation, to identify any potential impacts on businesses, employees, and consumers on the proposed wage increase, and an assessment from impacted departments such as the Treasurer, Tax Collector, Assessor, and Department of Economic Opportunity on any potential impacts to the county. And I understand that Supervisor Solis and I think Chair Hahn would like to add to the stakeholders to be included, and I have no problem with that. But I do appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate in your motion the fact that you did say that we need to look at all or collect all feedback from all vested parties. So that would be my proposal.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Solis.
Yes, I want to thank Supervisor Barger for accepting a friendly modification or amendment, and that would include after the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation, UCLA Labor, so it would be comma and then UCLA Labor Center, because they are a research group, and then keep the rest as is stated.
That's great. So for protocol here, does Supervisor Barger's read-in need a second to have us vote on it later in the meeting?
Yes, it would, Chair.
Yes, okay. Would you consider you be seconding it, right, since you're adding an amendment? Or I don't mind. I don't. I was wanted the UCLA Labor Center, so I don't have anything else. So moved and seconded, and I believe we'll have a chance to vote on it after public comment. Okay. So now we'll hear from members of the public wishing to address the board on the closed session.
Chair.
Oh, well, yes.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yes.
I had a quick question of Supervisor Barger, and it really was recognizing the role of our brand new created Department of Economic Opportunity and the role they are playing, the leadership role they are playing on our behalf and networking with businesses across the county. I'm wondering if DEO should or could either work alongside CEO. It just seems to me that the DEO would be the more appropriate entity to convene these groups that you've all listed. I think that's the county entity that has the ongoing working relationship with our businesses. So I just wanted to see if Supervisor Barger was open to at least including DEO or DCBA working collaboratively, minimally with CEO, given their working relationships with these organizations.
So, Supervisor Mitchell, so under the I therefore move the Board of Supervisors direct the Chief Executive Office, I'd be happy to include the Department of Economic Opportunity in collaboration with the Economic Opportunity Department up there. I would have no problem with that. I don't think the CEO would have a problem with that because you're probably going to work closely with them anyway. I included them, but I'd be happy to have them be one of the leads.
Yeah.
And DCBA.
Of course, we would have to leverage their relationships with those business organizations and those outreach entities anyway. So
I think that's a good. I think that's a good suggestion, and I welcome that and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. And like you said, you've included them as a stakeholder, so we might have gotten that information one way or the other from your read-in, but putting them at the lead will make it clearer. Okay. Again, back to hearing from members of the public wishing to address the board on the closed session item and general public comment. And for members of the public on the telephone, please press 1, then 0 now to comment on these items.
Well, Ambrose Brooks, Babs Mask, Donald Harlan, Greta Hasakis, Heather Detweiler, Janet Asante, Jerry DeVille, Joaquin Beltran, Sarah Mask, and Sway Mask, please come forward and staff will assist you. Moderator, may we have the first remote speaker, please?
Our first participant is Eric Previn. You may begin.
Thank you. This is the Alliance lawsuit, the Judge Carter situation, which the county board appealed and went with Mira Hashmal of Skip Miller's firm, Miller Barandas, up against the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, who said, no, Judge Carter is right to do this. You have to deal with him. So instead of 1,400 beds provided, now you have to provide, he says 3,000. It's probably more by now. This is an absolute fiasco, and I'm worried that the County Board of Supervisors are being side-run by the LA County Council, who are imperious and idiots. First of all, the LA County Flood District in Studio City, I've asked repeatedly Nicole Davis Tinkham for the agreement that's being proposed or thought about with Harvard Westlake, the imperious elite academy that wants to eat up our open space and put up a wall. And Supervisor Horvath, I really would appreciate it if you could reach out and try to help. Nithya Raman is sort of peeking at it right now and getting a little concerned as well, but it's really not okay to roll with these big donors from UCLA, including UCLA Labor, who are giving millions and millions of dollars and then just having their way with the public who have a right to this indigenous place. This is our home. So I appreciate your help. Good luck with the lawsuit.
Thank you.
It's a fiasco.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Elizabeth Z. You may begin.
Hi, yes, I'm calling on you to reverse the recent public health order that ends mask requirements in healthcare, at least until it can be added to the agenda. This is an extremely dangerous thing to pass through, and it will kill and disable people, and we're not getting any chance to weigh in on it at all. It's really an emergency. If you care about equity and safe access to healthcare and inclusion, this is what you have to do because a lack of universal masking in healthcare forces patients to choose between essential care and preventable exposure to a virus that could disable or kill them. It asks patients to weigh the need to go to the emergency room during a possible cardiac event against the risk of a preventable COVID infection. It compels patients to assess whether a colonoscopy is worth the risk of COVID. It is profoundly unethical and dangerous. And also, there are many people, many of the most vulnerable patients are not physically able to mask. People who have tracheectomies, people who are on supplemental oxygen, infants. Getting rid of the mask mandate is going to put everybody
Thank you very much. Your time has
and it
expired.
is going to kill vulnerable
Thank you.
people.
Your time has expired. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Paul Hennessy. You may begin.
Hi, I'm calling to strongly oppose the lifting of the mask mandates in medical settings, and I urge the board to reinstate it. Medical settings need to be as safe as possible, and that requires going above and beyond with precautions. That means masking to prevent a wide variety of illnesses, not just COVID, but also flu, RSV, and rhinoviruses spread easily in hospitals, and only washing your hands is an antiquated approach. Merely masking high-risk individuals is putting the burden on the most vulnerable, and one-way masking is much less effective. Acute COVID is still a leading cause of death, and long-term effects are rising, even from mild cases. We cannot risk death, disablement, or even disruption from unnecessary infections. Hospitals need to be safe. According to the CDC, 1 in 5 infections results from long COVID. We're in the middle of a COVID surge in LA. It's ironic that you're rescinding mask mandates while one of your board members is sick. Lifting the mask mandate in medical settings will result in more cases and put unnecessary strain on the medically vulnerable and medical staff. People of LA do not want anti-masking, anti-science policies. COVID is airborne. Start acting like it.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Sarah Peters. You may begin.
Yes, I'm speaking on the August 11th decision by the Department of Health with the mask mandate in healthcare settings, especially given the current surge. I feel the decision was made for economic and political reasons, not what is in the best interest of public health. This is especially concerning for immunocompromised patients who either have to remove their masks for procedures or treatment who are in close contact with technicians. Ill patients shouldn't have to choose between exposure or getting needed medical care. I have a 24-year-old daughter who had COVID in January 2020. Long COVID symptoms began soon after and have become progressively worse to the point she can no longer work. There's considerable research that has been published proving that two-way masking is a highly effective way to minimize airborne COVID transmission, and healthcare workers have taken the Hippocratic oath to do no harm. Exposing high-risk and immunocompromised patients to COVID is both a moral and community failing. It's an act of eugenics. It's also been proven that more infections per person increase the likelihood of long COVID, and this mass disabling event will be a nearly insurmountable burden on our healthcare system. Please reinstate the mask mandate and impose enforcement penalties for healthcare facilities in violation.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Melissa Pinsley. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Melissa Pinsley. I've had long COVID for over a year. Please reinstate masks in healthcare facilities. I'm in UCLA's long COVID clinic, and I'm required to come into offices for routine testing and procedures. Removing masks in healthcare puts my life at risk, as I cannot risk another infection, whether it's COVID or flu or RSV or TB. We know COVID is airborne and spreads via aerosols, which a well-fitting respirator mask will stop in conjunction with clean air filtration. Knowing we can prevent the spread and choosing not to is active eugenics. In May 2023, WHO said 1 in 10 COVID infections lead to long COVID. Now they are saying 1 in 5 infections, including asymptomatic people, will lead to long COVID, and your chances increase with each infection. Long COVID is terrible and mostly housebound, and some days completely bedbound, unable to move. I have 2 young kids who depend on me. Dropping masks is going to kill and disable so many more people, including our healthcare workers, and that blood will be on your hands if you don't do something now. When you minimize the real proven risks of COVID spread, you minimize my and countless other lives, including your own, because we are all at risk. Please reinstate masks in healthcare facilities. No one is safe until we are all safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
As a final reminder for participants on the telephone, if you would like to address these items, if you have not already done so, please press 1 and then 0 now to be placed in the speaking queue. Moderator, may we have the next speaker, please?
Our next participant is TJ Choi. You may begin.
I'm calling to ask that you reinstate masking in LA County hospitals. Over the last 8 weeks, there has been a 193% increase of COVID in wastewater surveillance. And from what I can tell, Supervisor Mitchell is currently sick with COVID. I recognize that hoarse voice. One-way masking does not work, especially when it concerns immunocompromised and vulnerable people in healthcare. So it seems really, really a terrible time at this point to drop masking in the middle of a surge. And the letter that I got back from DPH Media stating, quote, "We acknowledge that COVID-19 continues to circulate in Los Angeles County, however, with relatively low rates of transmission." I don't know when this letter was written, but it was sent to me on Friday, and I feel like at best it's really uninformed. And at worst, it's a gaslighting lie. So if this is the kind of information that Public Health and Board of Supervisors is working on, I highly suggest you hire more people to keep surveillance on what is happening with COVID, because this is unbelievable. and to suggest that vulnerable people
Thank you. Your
protect
time is
themselves
expired.
in a hospital.
Thank you. Your time is expired. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Jackie Tomlinson. You may begin.
Along the lines of COVID, the animals allowed in the apartments was, in rental properties, I'm sorry, the limit was lifted, and we had that limit lifted through March of 2024. It was recently changed and moved back to December 31st. Our shelters are now at an all-time high with more animals being killed than ever before. I'm the founder of Forever Home Animal Rescue, and I've worked with the LA County shelters for over 10 years, and it's just killing us. We have to be able to allow fosters to have extra animals in the homes until we can get a grip on this and get it under control, or we're going to have thousands of animals being killed every week, and it's heartbreaking. So we need your help to please move this deadline back, hopefully through the end of 2024, to help relieve this. And then, of course, getting more of the spay and neuter clinics back up and running, and having people there at the shelters greeting people as they come to abandon their animals, to help give them the resources that they need to keep their animals.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is April Dolliman. You may begin.
Hi. Yes, please keep masks in healthcare settings for medical professionals and patients. I was infected with COVID at my cardiologist's office in October of 2020. At only 31, I spent 4 days in the ICU. When I got out of the hospital, I called the office to let them know that I was infected there because I had been sheltering in place at home otherwise. They said that it was impossible and that everyone was healthy. I was hung up on. Despite wearing an N95, one-way masking is not enough, especially for vulnerable patients whose lives are just as valuable as anyone else. I'm now permanently disabled by long COVID. I couldn't even walk to the bathroom unaided for the first 7 months. I taught myself how to walk again on my own, literally crawling on the floor, because it was too unsafe for me to go in person for physical therapy. This is the reality of long COVID. It has completely destroyed my life, the life that I worked so hard for, and robbed me of the future that I've dreamt of. I have now been putting off getting more medical care to help me treat my conditions because I cannot risk reinfection, which would cause me to be more severely disabled or kill me. According to the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities
Thank you for
Act.
sharing your story. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Michael Olson. You may begin.
I would like to comment on mask mandates in healthcare as an epidemiologist. The lack of communication from public health agencies has left the public with an impression that the pandemic is over. It's not. COVID hospitalizations in Japan have risen from about 3,200 a day in April to about 22,000 a day today. Nosocomial COVID poses a direct threat to the lives of patients. Various peer-reviewed studies have shown that nosocomial COVID carries about a 10 to 30% mortality rate in the patient population, causing significant suffering to patients and their family and friends. We've already seen a loss of about 10,000 staffed healthcare beds around the U.S. since the start of the pandemic as a result of healthcare worker burnout, sickness, and death. A recent poll of 1,200 healthcare workers in Washington state found that 49% were likely to leave the workforce in the next 5 years. It's reasonable to assume that these results could be generalized across the country. Simple solution to part of this problem would be the implementation of respiratory protection mandates in healthcare settings, particularly requiring respirators for healthcare workers, patients and their families. Healthcare workers and their families and the community as a whole deserve no less.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is George Corral. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Jorge Corral. As a constituent who is putting money into the LA County coffers, I find it absurd that East Los Angeles office supervisor at Building and Safety, Ray Castellano, is telling me they are too busy to accept my application to convert a new built garage to an ADU. Especially unacceptable since I have 2 other projects right next to them in the same situation, and those applications were accepted. I don't think he should be able to pick and choose what applications to take. I try to reach out to his supervisors without any help. I don't know who else to reach out. If someone could help me out and reach out, I would greatly appreciate it.
Madam Chair,
yes,
that person resides in our district, so I'll have
Okay.
staff follow up with you. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you, Supervisor Solis. Okay, let's go in person. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Janet Asante. I am with the Justice LA Coalition.
And the reason I'm here is that we are facing a serious emergency in our jails. In the last 10 days this month, there have been 4 deaths in LASD custody, 3 of which have come from Men's Central Jail, which has been slated for closure for so long. There's numerous reports out there, and we have this jail continues indefinitely team asking for $200,000 PowerPoints from consultants in the UK. This is an emergency. There are lives at stake. We're on pace to have so many more deaths than at the height of the pandemic. We're about to break the record that was set in 2021. 2021, we saw the most deaths out of the last 13 years prior. So this is an emergency. You need to treat it like an emergency. You need to hold the CEO accountable for any roadblocks, fiscal or legal or otherwise. There are lives at stake. Families are reaching out to us because people are dying. They're not receiving the care that they need while they're inside. This is an emergency.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ambrose Brooks S. I am an organizer with the Justice LA Coalition and a resident of District 5. We're here in memory of the 30 people who have died in LASD custody this year. We're at month 7 of 2023. In the last 2 weeks, 4 people have died. 3 of these people have died in Men's Central Jail. Supervisor Solis, MCJ is in your district. Yet when people die in the jail, your office is silent. Our coalition has tried countless times to meet with your office to discuss how we can work together to safely close Men's Central Jail, but we too are met with silence. The community is asking the board to commit to a set timeline for the closure of Men's Central Jail and asking the CEO to commit to allocating the funds needed to facilitate safe and effective jail closure. We have those numbers. This is a human rights crisis. The UN has visited the jails. The DOJ is taking the county to court, and the US Congress is watching. What will it take for you to take this crisis seriously? We cannot continue to stand idly by as people continue to die. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Abby Mahler. I'm 29 and I've had lupus since I was 12. After a decade of symptoms, I was diagnosed in 2016, after which it took another few years of treatment to consider myself stable. But I know what it is like to lose abilities, to be the kind of sick that makes any imagined future blur. I cannot imagine seeking the care I needed then if I were seeking it now, as I can barely seek the as I can barely safely seek the needed maintenance care for my chronic illnesses. There is no justification for leaving people sicker than they were. As our own president asserts, we have the tools, but it doesn't work if you don't use them. History will look back on you in the same way we look back upon those opposed to dragging feet on other infection control practices like clean water, hand washing, and wearing gloves. Indeed, anyone actually qualified to make this decision should already have the historical perspective to know this. So why even consider it? Cost savings on PPE, costs that will skyrocket as repeat COVID infections disable 10 to 30% of those afflicted, and that likelihood is even higher for people with conditions like mine. Removing masks in healthcare renders an essential service not only inaccessible, but actively dangerous. Yes, to people like me, but to all. Employees who serve safe workspaces.
Thank you. Your time has
Thank
expired.
you.
Next speaker, please.
Yes, my name is Greta Hasakis, and I am here because this is a moment filled with possibility. This is a time when mask requirements could be mandated once again, and the LA County Board of Supervisors could direct LA County Health Department to reinstate masks, keeping us safe. I am not safe in healthcare settings, as many other people have said, and so eloquently. My mother, Patricia Hasakis, was an LA County public health doctor and the director of the Binational Border Health Program. She also oversaw the mobile tuberculosis treatment for Skid Row. She handled public health emergencies. She did contact tracing and prevention and treatment. These things are not happening under LA County Health Department currently. Public health practices and protocols are not being followed. And I'm asking the LA County Board of Supervisors to please direct.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'm Sarah Johnson on behalf of 65 million to 400 million people with long COVID. I demand that LA County permanently require and enforce universal masking in all healthcare settings. Everybody in this room is either disabled or pre-disabled. Everybody is elderly or pre-elderly, and despite your age, vaccination status, past COVID infections, or how healthy or medically insured you think you are, everyone here is at risk of long COVID. It is an ADA recognized disability with a known trigger, yet it still disables 25,000 Americans each week, adding 1.3 million per year to the existing 10 million. Long haulers are being erased from life. 65 million people on this planet have long COVID. That is equal to the entire population of France. You would see that from outer space. It's equal to all Gen Xers in the United States. If all Gen Xers in this room were disabled, who would be left? 4 million Americans are too disabled to work.
Thank you.
Losing
Thank you. Your time has
$170 billion
expired.
in earnings.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello. Yes, my name is DeVille, Jerry DeVille. I have an invention here. Plus the fact I think I passed out some flyers to supervisors. I'd like them to read what's on the flyer here.
Thank you.
It's about wildfires, all the wildfires that we have today. Do each supervisor have a copy?
Can you make sure that we all have a copy? Did you want to get it from him? You got it. Okay, so we will get it. Can you give him back some time, because I just took his time.
I'm sorry.
Hold on.
The invention that I have is about all these wildfires.
Hold on. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
No, I was trying to give you guys a copy of each one of you.
We're getting it. We're getting it.
Well, if you would read it now, then you'd have an understanding of what I'm trying to say.
Go ahead. We'll read it after the meeting.
You keep saying you read it. Okay. Anyway, it's about all these wildfires that we are having that's running out of control today and all these things. And I'm thinking that I have invented a machine that will fight this wildfire much quicker, sooner. And the thing about these wildfires, the reason why they are running out of control, because as the time of essence, the fire department has nothing that they have today to fight no fire. Everything they have is too slow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we will look at it when we receive it.
I'm not done, ma'am.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next speaker, please.
How do you get to see my invention?
I'm sorry, your time has expired for public comment.
Whoa, weird. I didn't
Yes,
come all the
thank
way
you.
down here like that, ma'am.
Next speaker, please. You know what?
I'd like
if
to
you
have
want to, can you go to the, who's in the back that can help this gentleman and look at his invention? Can you, floor staff, can you direct him to the,
Present my invention to someone now.
Thank you. You'll be able to show it right now. Thank you.
Maybe he needs a job.
Okay, next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I speak on agenda item number 1 about the annexation and levying of assessments for Canyon Country. Canyon Country belongs to me too. I would question your trying to steal tax monies by paying for street lighting. Yeah, that's my property. They're my lights, my streets, my my electricity, my everything. I understand you're supposed to keep track of the taxes, and maybe that's the right thing to do, but I don't want you guys stealing tax money for unlawfully developed real estate. You know, if you guys were real smart and you really were serious about your job and about stopping the corruption, you should take a look at Canyon Country and take a look at all those judges and law enforcement that reside over there and take a good look at their work and the people they've done deals with.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Joaquin Beltran. I'm from the city of Downey and also from actioncareequity.org. My main message is to keep masks in healthcare settings. The reversal of the public health order that rescinds requirement of masking in healthcare is critical. Right now, we are in a surge. This is the worst time to implement that decision. You heard earlier today from long haulers, people going through long COVID. This is such an important issue that they came out here, even though they're struggling, to share their stories. Right now, your job here is to protect people. You are actively harming people with this public health order. I have a friend whose mother went into the hospital without COVID. She got COVID in the hospital, died from that very same infection. This is a bad, harmful health order. Please reverse it immediately. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
There are no other speakers.
No
Madam
other
Chair.
speakers. Okay. Then that concludes our time for public comment. Supervisor Barger, I believe you had one more amendment to your motion, to your
Yes.
read-in.
Yes, excuse me. In addition to the UCLA Labor Institute, I'd like to include LANE, the LA Alliance for
A New Economy.
New Economy.
Great. Thank you. And so Supervisor's read-in motion as amended is.
Sorry, I want to submit for the record too.
I'm sorry.
The petitions that we,
That's
the
fine.
letters sent to your
Thank
office.
you. Your time has expired.
Over 6,000
Your
letters.
time has expired. We'll take
Thank you so much.
the petitions. Thank you. Okay, Supervisor Barger's read-in motion as amended is now before us. Moved by Supervisor Barger, seconded by Supervisor Solis to approve this item. Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Supervisor Solis.
Aye.
Supervisor Solis. Aye. Supervisor Mitchell.
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell. Aye. Supervisor Horvath.
Aye.
Supervisor Horvath. Aye. Supervisor Barger.
Aye.
Supervisor Barger. Aye. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn. Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, colleagues, at this time it would be appropriate to hear adjournments, and I believe just Supervisor Horvath and I have adjournments. So Supervisor Horvath?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in memory of Clarence Avant, a titan in the music and entertainment industries. He died at home on Sunday, August 13th at the age of 92. He and his wife Jacqueline, who precedes him in death, were longtime residents of Beverly Hills. Known as the Black Godfather for his powerful role in multiple industries over many decades, and his mentorship of Black artists, athletes, and executives, Avant's life started humbly. Born in Greensboro, North Carolina in 1931, the oldest of 8 children, Avant left home as a young teen to join his aunt in New Jersey. After getting an office job in New York City, he discovered his real passion as the manager of a jazz club. By the early 1960s, he became a music manager with clients including R&B singer Little Willie John, jazz singers Sarah Vaughan and Dinah Washington. In 1967, he married Jacqueline Gray, a model from Queens he wooed with limo rides and access to New York's top clubs. They were an incredible power couple whose partnership lasted 54 years and included 2 children, Nicole and Alexander. Together, the Avants left an indelible mark not only on the entertainment industry, including music, sports, and film, but also in the world of politics and philanthropy. The Avant household hosted parties and fundraisers for local and national leaders. Avant put together a star-studded concert for Andrew Young when the civil rights icon was running for Congress in 1972. He united Hollywood in support of Jimmy Carter's presidential run, hosting the candidate's first major fundraiser. Years later, he would raise money for Bill Clinton, becoming good friends with the future president. In 2004, it was Avant who got Obama's landmark speech at the Democratic National Convention moved to prime time. Avant's influence on the world of music began in the late 1950s and continued through the 1990s. From discovering and managing Bill Withers with hits like Ain't No Sunshine, to launching Janet Jackson's career with Control in 1986. His impact through Sussex Records, Avant-Garde Broadcasting, Taboo Records, and the many burgeoning Black producers and executives whose careers he launched is far-reaching. Avant's legacy will be felt by many generations to come through the music he cultivated, to the organizations and leaders he and Jackie supported, and through their 2 beloved children. We extend our sincerest condolences to their family.
Thank you. I'd like to join you on that one.
Absolutely.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
Supervisor Horvath, if I may join as well. You know, we had the privilege of naming a county facility just months ago in honor of his widow, of his wife, Jacqueline, at the King Drew facility, a children's health facility. And so if I may join, I would be greatly honored. Thank you, Supervisor.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Are you Is that all? Okay, thank you. I move, colleagues, that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of Dennis Sutlovich, who was 77, and he passed away from complications from Alzheimer's. He was born and raised in San Pedro. He graduated from San Pedro High, attended Harbor College, where he met Nancy, the love of his life. They were married for 53 years. He also attended LA City College, where he learned architecture and got his contractor's license. Dennis retired after 40 years with the City of Los Angeles as a senior building inspector for the Department of Building and Safety. And during that time, he was the architect and builder for not only his own home, where they raised a family and lived for over 50 years, but for many other family members and friends in our community. He was a talented builder, building boats as well as motorcycles and furniture. He also loved to hunt and fish and cook, and I understand he was quite the wine connoisseur. And he and Nancy enjoyed traveling from state to state in their fifth wheel camper. He was preceded in death by his wife, Nancy, and their son, Andrew, and he's survived by his son, Matthew, and his daughter, Michelle, and 5 grandchildren. Nancy, his wife, who passed away earlier, was the older sister of 2 of my best friends in high school, Janice and Wendy Hennel, and I had an opportunity to see them over the weekend. Michelle, who was Dennis's daughter, came over to my house. I had not seen my high school best friend, Janice. Isn't that funny that her name was Janice? For 50 years. So it was a reunion at a sad time for their family. So may Dennis rest in peace. I also move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of James Leach, who was 90 and a lifelong resident of Torrance when he passed away. Jim graduated from Torrance High School in 1951 and was a Naval Korean War veteran. He worked 35 years as an instrument repairman for Unocal 76 in Wilmington. And after retiring, Jim volunteered on the Lane Victory ship in San Pedro for many years. He was an avid camper who spent at least 1 week every summer tent camping in Yosemite with his family. He and his wife, Donna, also enjoyed being on the road, exploring the western United States in his camper van. The two also loved cruising and traveling abroad to Europe and Asia. Jim is survived by his wife, Donna. There are 4 of his children, Scott, Mark, Greg, and Paige, 5 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. And we will take those motions as seconded. If there's no objection to a unanimous vote, that will be the action. Members of the public and colleagues, we're going to go into closed session now. Executive Officer, please read us into closed session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In accordance with Brown Act requirements, notice is hereby given that the Board of Supervisors will convene in closed session to discuss item CS1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation as indicated on the supplemental agenda. Thank you.
Are we back? Oh. Yes, Supervisor Mitchell, can you hear us? Yes, okay. Okay, great. Executive Officer, please read the report of action.
The following is a report of action taken in closed session on August 15th, 2023. Item CS1, no reportable action was taken. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes today's meeting. The next meeting of the board will be a special closed session meeting to be held on Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 at 1 p.m. And the next regular meeting of the board will be held on Tuesday, September 12th, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. This meeting is adjourned for the summer. See you in September.